You never did think that it ever would have happened again. You were born in America, by God's amazing grace. Only in America, dreaming in red, white, and blue. Only in America, where we dream as big as we want to. We all get a chance. Everybody gets to dance. Only in America.
It's the Wake Up Call with your host, Grant Carey. News, weather, sports, guests, and your calls.
7:08, good morning to you. 78 degrees already, 79 degrees actually in downtown Searcy. Headed up just above 100 today. Got a little bit of shower activity yesterday, but it just cooled things off for a little bit. You know what's hot when the rain isn't even cool? It's like you're taking a bath or something. Good morning and thanks for joining us here on the Wake Up Call. News Talk 99.1, streaming live on the website at newstalk991.com. You can also listen on the AM side at 1300 and 1370. Of course, 99.1 FM, and also on your smartphone if you download the free TuneIn Radio app. And we are pleased to have joining us by phone this morning Congressman Tim Griffin. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning.
How you doing?
Well, I'm ready to get back home, to be honest with you.
I asked you off the air earlier, do you have any hair left after yesterday? I know that's...
I tell you, it's been a long journey to get to this point, but I'm glad we got something done. It is, like a lot of legislation, it's not pretty.
No.
It's not great, but I think I voted for it because I thought that it was better than the alternative. It's a good start, and I think if we step back a little bit, you got to think about the fact that a year ago, before a lot of the new freshmen got up here and everything, Speaker Pelosi was talking about how much more to spend, and now we are talking about how much to reduce spending and how to get our spending under control. And so we have had a change of culture to some extent. We got a long way to go, but this is a good first step. And so just got to keep going and keep pushing to get some sense into this city.
I think there are a lot of people that would disagree with you probably vehemently on that. I mean, as far as it being a good deal, I know we've been talking about this morning, and taking calls from folks saying, how can the Republicans stand there and say this is good because of, we're pushing up the amount we can spend immediately, and then saying, well, we may cut some stuff down the road. We'll cut a little bit now. We may cut some stuff down the road. What do you say to that?
Well, it's not may cut. I mean, these are mandatory cuts. The cuts are going to happen. And let me be real clear about this. First of all, the debt ceiling was going to be raised. It had to be raised. And we borrow 42 cents on the dollar. And a lot of the money needed for a lot of the reason why we needed to raise the debt ceiling is because of money already spent, not money we're spending today. This is money already committed. And so we knew that as a country, we were going to raise the debt ceiling. It was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And I am one of the biggest anti-debt people around. Mm-hmm. But once you establish that, the question is, we're going to raise it like it had been raised 100 times before, just raise it, or are we going to raise it and demand some cuts that go with it? And we did the latter. Now, I'll be real clear. I would not have designed this legislation. The Speaker would not have designed this legislation. And if I would have gotten legislation like this when we had a conservative president and a conservative Senate, then I would have said no, absolutely no. But that's not what we have. The question is this the best we were going to get with this president and this Senate, and that's the answer to that is yes. So I also would say that if this was the only step in the history of the world to deal with our debt, I would have voted no. But it's not. It's one of many. And so, look, I'm not going to try to say it's a beautiful piece of legislation. It's not. But we don't vote on, they don't give you 10 choices. It's a yes or it's a no. Mm-hmm. And I think a yes was better than a no on this. And a majority of the Tea Party caucus voted for this legislation. So I'm not the only one that felt like wasn't a great deal, but it was better than the alternative.
Right. Now, do you think that at some point down the road? Well, before I get to that question, there were some people I was watching yesterday on the news, and I've read some things. Some people are concerned with this committee that's going to be formed, deciding what increases and what cuts and so on and so forth. And the concern being that Congress is the one that should decide those things, not an individual committee, but rather the entire Congress.
There's a lot of misinformation about that. First of all, this would be Congress. This is just like another committee of Congress, and these are all members of Congress that are appointed to this committee. So it will be members of Congress. Mm-hmm. But second of all, they're not going to decide anything finally. They're just going to recommend to the floor, and then we'll vote it up or down.
Okay.
So they could say, we think you ought to do this, and then it comes to the floor, and we say nope, or we say yes. Mm-hmm. So it's not an external independent commission. It's not what it is.
Right.
It's a committee of the Congress, so it's members of Congress sitting on it. And number one. Number two, they can't just decide. Whatever they decide is a recommendation, which the full House and the full Senate then get to vote on.
Right.
I would also say that this agreement pushes the idea of the balanced budget amendment, which a lot of us have been pushing for a long time. Mm-hmm. And we will have there's a required vote on it, both in the House and the Senate. And I would say this too. If you would have had a different speaker, you would have had the debt limit increased with nothing else done. Right. You would have had Speaker Pelosi. You would have had the 108 or whatever debt ceiling increase, and there would have been nothing. Mm-hmm. Just because that's routine. Been that way for years. Debt ceiling just gets raised. Mm-hmm. So that in and of itself is a good thing, obviously. The other thing that I would say is it took years to get here, and unless you elect everybody that thinks like me, which they don't,
right,
it's going to take a long time and a lot of fights. Mm-hmm. I mean, look, we proposed the House budget. Some people call it the Ryan budget. We proposed the House budget. I voted for it. It takes over a decade, way over a decade, under that budget to get the budget in balance. Mm-hmm. And people are calling that extreme. So, and everybody on the other side attacked us for trying to pass a responsible budget. There are a lot of people in this town who do not want for this country to live within its means. They just don't. They don't believe we have a spending problem. They mm-hmm. believe it's a tax problem. That we're just not taxed enough.
Right.
And that's just nonsense. And I could go through all the numbers. I'll spare you the numbers. But there are a lot of people that do not agree with me and our view of getting spending under control. Mm-hmm. And, until we get more people who think that way, it's going to be every single fight is going to be hard like this.
And one of the things, one of the reasons I'm glad we have you on this morning is because you are there, and the average American is getting their information from the news and from the AP and from whoever. And one of the things I was reading this morning, and I wanted to run this by you, they're reporting that this deal, with this committee that's going to be formed to look at cuts down the road, those cuts would come from things like farm subsidies, federal retirement benefits, Medicare, Medicaid, and so on. I think a concern from a lot of people is that we've increased, which they're also reporting that this is increasing the borrowing cap by $400 billion immediately, and then another $500 billion this fall. I think the worry with a lot of people is that the feeling is we're kicking this can down the road somewhat and saying, all right, we're going to go ahead and spend all, up the limit, let you spend this money. And then when we come down the road and say, all right, it's time to cut, then they're going to be like, wait, we can't cut this. Wait, we can't cut that. Well, we can't get rid of this program. And we're going to get screwed on the back end,
that go into place under this deal if people can't make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
Are we kicking the can down the road on some of the hard decisions? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Not because I wanted to. Our budget that we voted for does not. Our budget deals with a lot of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the founders set up a system where, unlike the British system, parliamentary system, nothing can be done unless the House, the Senate, and the President agree. That's our system.
Mm-hmm.
Under the parliamentary system in England, you win the election, you control it all, and you do pretty much whatever you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
The founders didn't trust all that much power in one group of folks, so they said, Senate, you get a little power, House, you get a little power, President, you get a little power. And unless all three of those agree completely, nothing gets done. And so, do I want to kick the can down the road? No. I came here to fix that. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people that do, because if we touch anything, this is what I hear. This is what I hear all the time. Cut, but don't cut mine.
Exactly.
Cut, but don't cut mine.
Right.
I know you got to do a lot of cutting, but this program's great.
Yeah, don't gore my ox,
This program's really important.
Yeah.
I hear it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've been willing to vote for the cuts anyway, because I know, and I tell people, if we don't do the cutting now, these entire programs aren't going to just be cut. They're going to go away because we're going to be so bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we have a situation where a lot of voters say, get the balance, get the budget balanced, get it under control, da-da-da. And then in the same breath, they say, that's my 4-year-old. In the same breath, they say, but don't do this, but don't cut that.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say this, back to your question about the different things that'll be cut. The specifics are not known yet, but there'll be all kinds of stuff cut.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some town halls, and again, we've done a ton already. I think we've done about 12 this year. But I'm going to keep showing people statistics and the stats and the budget, because there's a lot of misinformation out there.
Right.
A lot of people say, cut foreign aid, cut earmarks, cut waste, fraud, and abuse, and you'll balance the budget.
Mm-mm.
Not even close.
Yeah,
I mean, foreign aid, yes, we should look at it, but foreign aid is less than 2% of the budget.
Mm-hmm.
what earmarks, we've already banned them. Waste, fraud, and abuse, that's estimated to be 5%, 6%, whatever. Let's say it's 10%. It's still nowhere near what's driving the debt.
Well, and the thing is, I don't think there's a question as to the fact that that some of these things have been set aside to be cut, because there are a lot of Democrats that aren't happy about this deal. The representative from Missouri was all over the news yesterday over his sugar-coated Satan sandwich comment. And he explained last night that the reason he said that was because, well, it's going to starve old people, and there's not going to be this program, not going to be that program. So I think there are going to be cuts, and obviously the Democrats wouldn't be so unhappy if there weren't, you know?
Well, look, that's what puzzled me. You know, I don't love the deal. The question when you're voting yes or no is it's a 50-50, you know, it's is it better than it is bad?
Right.
It's not, is it great?
Mm-hmm.
And yesterday morning, the New York Times and all these other left-wing publications and editorialists and what have you were saying, this is an awful plan. This is a victory for conservatives, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, hey, that's consistent with what I'm hearing. And then all of a sudden, folks that normally agree with me were attacking. I'm like, wait a minute. Okay. You know, Paul Krugman of the New York Times, who hates it,
mm-hmm.
can't be in perfect agreement with Rush Limbaugh. I mean, something's not right.
It's the end of days if that's the case, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what's not right here is there's a lot of there's some misinformation. Certainly, there are parts of it that there's something in there for everybody to dislike.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, that's the nature of the beast. And anyway, you know, I would remind you that the Tea Party caucus voted. The majority of them voted for it.
Right.
So, you know, Alan West voted for it. Mike Pence, Paul Ryan. These are not liberals, and I think this is. I think a lot of folks, after weeks and months of negotiation, I think folks just said, "Look, we are not going to be able to do the bold and big things with this president."
Well, one of the things that I was going to ask you as well as, and I know we're going to have to go here in just a second, but I appreciate you joining us.
Sure.
One of the things I wanted to ask you too was comparing this to cut, cap, and balance, which I know when you look at the numbers, there's a huge difference there as far as the amount of borrowing that's cut. But what are the similarities between cut, cap, and balance, which failed in the Senate, and this deal?
Well, cut, cap, and balance was a lot simpler,
mm-hmm.
was a lot stronger, was a lot better in my view, and it truly, cut, cap, and balance in and of itself, and you got to excuse me, I woke up with a cold, cut, cap, and balance would have dealt with this problem, period.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Meaning, it wouldn't be just a little bit of progress with a whole long way to go. Cut, cap, and balance truly address the spending now, the spending in the future, and the balanced budget amendment. This is the one we voted on yesterday, as bad as it may be, it's still a baby step forward.
Mm-hmm.
A baby step forward in a marathon. And we got 26 miles to go. So cut, cap, and balance would not have been sort of the beginning. It would have been a solution to the whole problem, not just the debt limit, but the debt.
Right.
And I would emphasize to a lot of folks, we have just dealt with the debt limit and a little bit with the debt. We have not really, this obviously does not fix the debt. This doesn't even come close. It's a step in the right direction, but it we've got a long, long way to go because what we were able to get in cuts here are significant, but it doesn't even come close to dealing with our deficits. And it's going to take a president who is willing to deal with that stuff, the big entitlement programs in particular, you know, and if you don't have somebody willing to deal with that, it's not going to get done. You've got to have a president willing to sign it.
Well, what do you see happening later today? Passing the Senate, going to the president?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. It's going to pass. And you know, it's like I said to Speaker Boehner the other day. When we get done with this debt agreement, what are we going to do about the debt? Because this has positive things in it, but the biggest part of the problem is still there.
Right. It's just, you could say this is the first round of 10. You know.
Oh, first round of 50.
50, yeah, long fight.
If we have this sort of president, if we had a president who is absolutely dedicated to getting our budget in balance, and a Senate to go along with it, then we could enact specific reforms that would address it all.
Right.
You know, and you know, I tell folks who are concerned about Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and all, my mother's 70. She's on Social Security and Medicare. I'm concerned about them, too. That's why I want to do something. Because if you don't do anything, they're going away.
Right. Completely.
Yeah, we've got to reform them to save them.
Right.
Anyway, hope I haven't taken too much time.
No, not at all. They're very, very informative. Like I said, you know, we get sound bites, we get things, but I mean, you're there, and that gives us, you know, more insight into this and what's really going on. So appreciate you joining us this morning.
Sure, and we're going to do a town hall in White County. Not sure the exact date yet, but we'll be making sure you get that info. I assume you get all our press releases there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Yeah, we'll be making sure y'all know. And again, this is not a great piece of legislation, but I believed it was better than nothing. And you know, I told somebody yesterday, you can vote yes and cut something. You can vote no and cut nothing. I took something over nothing.
All right, Congressman Tim Griffin, thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank y'all.
You have a great day.
Appreciate it.
7:30 on the wake-up call, and we'll take your calls coming up, 305-0991 or 268-9898. And you can also talk back on the website at newstalk991.com.